The call came in at 6:47 on a Tuesday morning, which meant Daniel Avila was already awake. He was always already awake. He had been awake since 5:15, when his daughter Marisol had padded into the kitchen in her socks and her oversized dinosaur shirt, sat down at the table, and announced that she needed a diorama of the solar system by Thursday, and that she was pretty sure Jupiter needed to be bigger than his head. He had been making lunches and signing permission slips and hunting for a left sneaker that had apparently decided to live behind the dryer. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, the coffee had gone cold, and he had drunk it anyway, because that was Tuesday. That was most mornings, if he was honest. The kind of full and exhausting and quietly good that you only recognize later from a distance when you're wishing you were back inside it. He answered the phone while Marisol ate cereal and narrated a documentary about dolphins she was inventing as she went. Avila Tech Repair. Yes, the voice on the other end was precise, controlled in a way that suggested it was almost always controlled with significant effort. My name is Catherine Voss. I was given your number by the building manager on Whitfield Avenue. I need someone today. My laptop there's a data issue. It's urgent. I have a 9 o'clock in East Side. I can pay double your standard rate. Daniel glanced across the table at Marisol, who had moved on from dolphins to explaining the dietary habits of what she called the friendly kind of shark, not the rude ones. He thought about the water heater that had been making that sound again. The sound that the plumber had described using the word eventually, which Daniel had learned over 3 years of owning a house alone, was a word that meant soon and expensively. I'll be there at 10, he said. He had started Avila Tech Repair 4 years ago after his wife left. Not after she died. After she left. That distinction mattered to him, though he'd stopped explaining it to people because the explanation always required more conversation than he had energy for. She had left on a Wednesday in November, with 2 suitcases and a composure that he still did not fully understand. She said she had not been happy for a long time. She said she needed to find out who she was outside of this. She said she was sorry about Marisol. Marisol had been 4 years old. He had stood in the hallway of the apartment, holding his daughter, listening to the elevator doors close, and felt something inside him make a very quiet decision. He was not going to fall apart, not where she could see it, not where she would absorb it and carry it into whatever life came next. So he did not. He had been working IT support for a mid-sized firm downtown, the kind of job that paid steadily and meant nothing to him. And within 6 months, he had saved enough to register the business and print 300 business cards that Marisol had insisted on helping design, which was why every single one of them had a small illustrated dinosaur in the bottom left corner. He had not had the heart to reprint them. Honestly, he still didn't. The clients didn't seem to mind, or they minded and said nothing, which in Daniel's experience was approximately the same thing. He drove a 2017 Honda with a crack in the dashboard that Marisol had once covered with a sticker of a smiling cloud. The cloud was still there. He worked out of a converted bedroom in their house, its shelves lined with hard drives and diagnostic equipment, and the organized, deliberate tidiness of a man who needs every part of at least one room to make sense. He was good at what he did. Very good. Actually, in the quiet way that people are good at things when they have been practicing without anyone watching for a long time. He was not rich. He was not comfortable, exactly. He was the particular kind of fine that requires constant maintenance. The water heater, the car, the list of things that could wait one more month, and a shorter list of things that absolutely could not. He knew the exact dollar amount in his account at any given moment the way a pilot knows the altitude. Not obsessively. Just as information he could not afford not to have. Marisol started 3rd grade in September. She had her mother's eyes and his way of going completely silent when something interested her, that particular hell-breath stillness that he'd always considered one of the better things he'd passed on. She collected rocks. She had opinions about clouds. She had told her teacher that her father was a scientist, which Daniel felt was generous but not entirely inaccurate. He had not dated since the divorce. Friends asked, occasionally, in the careful way people ask when they believe the answer will probably be no, but feel they should ask anyway. He always said he was fine. He usually was. There was a difference between loneliness and being alone, and he had learned, with some effort, to live in the second without sliding into the first. Marisol helped. She helped more than she knew, more than he would ever fully be able to tell her. The address Catherine Voss had given him was on the 14th floor of a building in the financial district, a place with a lobby that echoed when you walked, and a security desk staffed by a man who checked Daniel's ID with the quiet skepticism of someone who had been doing this long enough to trust no one and nothing before 10 a.m. He was shown to the elevator. He rode it up in silence. The office was at the end of a carpeted hallway, the kind of carpet that absorbed sound entirely, so that the whole floor had the pressurized hush of a place where a great deal happened in very controlled silence. He knocked twice. "Come in." Catherine Voss was standing with her back to the door, looking out a window at the city below. She was wearing a dark blazer, her hair pulled back, and she held a coffee cup she did not appear to be drinking from. She was perhaps 50, maybe a few years either side of it, with the kind of face that suggested it had once been very open to the world and had, over time, learned not to be. "Mr. Avila." "Ms. Voss." He set down his bag. "You mentioned a data issue." She turned, and he noticed then what he should have noticed first, that she looked tired in a way that a night's bad sleep didn't account for. There were careful shadows under her eyes. Her composure was intact, the kind of intact that takes real work to maintain, and he recognized it because he had worn the same thing for most of the year Marisol was 4. She gestured to the laptop on the desk. "It won't open. I've had it for 6 years. I need everything on it recovered. Particularly," she stopped. Something moved across her face, fast and controlled. "Particularly the documents." "I'll take a look." He sat down at the desk and opened the laptop. The screen flickered, went dark, came back with an error message he recognized. A corrupted boot sector, which was recoverable, almost certainly, but it would take time and the use of his external diagnostic drive. He began setting up, methodically, the way he always worked, without narration and without urgency. Catherine Voss retreated to the far corner of the office, to a smaller chair near the window, and sat with her coffee and her silence. He did not make conversation. He had learned, over 4 years of entering stranger spaces and handling the objects that mattered most to them, that most people didn't want conversation. They wanted competence. They wanted to feel that the thing they were afraid was gone was going to come back. He worked for 40 minutes. The hard drive came back. He ran the recovery software, watching file names populate across his screen with the quiet satisfaction he always felt at this part, like watching something breathe again after it had stopped. The documents folder opened. He was looking for the file she would need, the one she described on the phone, a presentation she'd said several years of financial projections. He was scanning the folder names when the word processing application opened automatically, restoring the last document that had been in progress. He would have closed it immediately. He had a rule about this, a rule he held to more strictly than most of his other professional guidelines, because he understood, in a way that was personal rather than theoretical, what it meant to have someone see something you were not ready to show. He had a rule about other people's open documents the way he had a rule about accidentally heard phone calls and unconcealed photographs. You avert your eyes. You close the window. You do not read. But the document was already open, and he had already read the first 2 lines before his hand reached the trackpad. "I have started this letter 11 times. 11 times in 12 months, which means something, though I'm not sure what. Maybe that I am not yet good enough at goodbyes. Maybe that what I have to say is true, and true things resist being finished. Nadia, by the time you read this, I will be gone from the company. I am writing to you as your mother, which is something I don't know how to do and am trying to learn, and this letter is my most recent and probably my last attempt." He closed the document. He sat very still for a moment, looking at the screen. Then he found the financial presentation, copied it to his external drive, and continued his work. She brought him coffee at the 40-minute mark, set it on the desk beside his equipment without commentary, the same way he would have done it, and he noted this without saying so. He was almost finished. She had gone back to her chair. He could hear, very faintly, the sound of the city 14 floors below, the compressed, indifferent sound of a city that does not know or care about the documents open on your laptop or the letters you have started 11 times and not finished sending. He thought about Marisol, He thought about the permission slip he'd left on the counter, the one for the class trip to the nature center, the one he'd meant to sign this morning and hadn't. He thought about the water heater. He thought about 2 lines of a letter written to a woman named Nadia from her mother, who did not know how to say goodbye and was trying to learn. "It's recovered," he said. Catherine Voss looked up from the window. "Everything." Her voice was careful. "Everything." He began packing up his equipment. The boot sector was corrupted, probably a software update that didn't complete. "It happens. All your documents are intact. I've restored the system to a clean boot." He paused. The way he paused before the part of the job he always found slightly uncomfortable. "One of your documents opened automatically during recovery. I closed it immediately." She was very still. "Which document?" she said. Not a question. He met her eyes. "I don't know the file name." "A letter. I read 2 lines before I closed it." "I'm sorry. If this story is already pulling at something in you, hit the like button and subscribe to Quiet Kind, and drop a comment below telling me where in the world you're watching from." He was just a single dad with a cracked dashboard and a dinosaur on his business card. He had no idea whose grief he'd just walked into. Keep watching. The silence between them was the particular kind that arrives when something true has been accidentally shared before either person was ready. Catherine Voss stood, walked to the window, stood there with her back to him again. Below, the city went on. A delivery truck idling at a light. A woman walking very fast in the direction of something that could not wait. "Did you understand what you read?" she said. "I understood it was a letter," Daniel said, "to someone named Nadia." She didn't answer immediately. He finished packing. He should have asked about payment, should have written up the invoice, should have said something professionally closing about calling if the issue recurred. He did all of these things in a different order than usual. He was at the door when she spoke. "She stopped talking to me 4 years ago." Catherine Voss's voice had lost something. Not the control, exactly, but the effort behind it. What was left was just a voice. Tired. Honest. The kind that comes after you've been performing composure for so long it stops feeling like a performance and starts feeling like a second skin that's slowly become too tight. "My daughter. She's 31. She stopped talking to me 4 years ago, and I have been writing that letter for one of them." Daniel stood in the doorway. He did not say "I'm sorry," because he had been on the receiving end of "I'm sorry" for years and knew that it was almost always the right thing to say and almost never the thing that actually helped. What he said instead was, "Is she safe?" Catherine Voss turned. The question had caught her off guard. He could see it, a small fracture in the composure, real and immediate. "Yes," she said. Yes. She lives in Portland. She has a life. She's fine." A pause. "She just doesn't have me in it." He nodded once. "Then the letter can still reach her," he said. "You've still got time to get it right." He left. He rode the elevator down in silence, walked through the echoing lobby, nodded to the security guard who had not trusted him, and stepped out into the noise of the city. He sat in the car for a moment before starting it. He thought about the permission slip, the water heater, Jupiter needing to be bigger than his head. He thought about a woman on the 14th floor who had been writing a letter to her daughter for a year and had not yet found the right ending. He started the car and drove home to his daughter. The business gathering was held on the second Friday of November in a rented event space downtown with good lighting and the particular hum of people who are networking while pretending they're simply having a pleasant evening. Daniel arrived early because he always arrived early to jobs and spent 40 minutes setting up the technology station, a demonstration terminal, a Q&A interface for small business owners, a clean display of his cards with the dinosaur in the corner. He had reprinted them, finally. Marisol had insisted the dinosaur stay. He had agreed because she was right. He was adjusting the monitor angle when a man appeared beside him. "You the tech consultant?" The man, mid-50s, expensive suit, the relaxed confidence of someone who has never had to think much about the cost of things, extended a hand. "Richard Hale. I'm on Catherine's advisory board." Daniel Avila. They shook. "Just here for the technology segment." Right. Richard Hale looked at the setup with the mild approval of a man who approves of things without having any particular understanding of them. Good that she finally replaced Garrison. Old tech guy. Good man, but well. He lowered his voice with the practiced ease of someone who lowered his voice often and enjoyed it. Things have been unusual this year. With Catherine, you probably noticed. Daniel looked at him. I only met her recently, he said. She seemed fine to me. Richard Hale smiled the smile of a man receiving information he considers incomplete. She's been distracted, emotionally compromised, some of the board would say. There's been talk about the quarterly reports. Talk about leadership. Between you and me, there are people positioning for a change at the top. He said it the way people say things they want you to believe they're reluctant to say. She's built something extraordinary, but sentiment doesn't run a firm. Daniel looked at the man for a moment. I should finish setting up, he said. Richard Hale nodded and moved away, already scanning the room for the next conversation. Daniel stood alone for a moment at the terminal. He thought about a woman sitting at a desk, writing the 12th draft of a letter to her daughter. He thought about the word distracted and what it cost, and who decided what it was worth. He finished setting up. Catherine arrived at 6:20 in a charcoal blazer, her hair down in a way he hadn't seen before, and moved through the room with the steady authority of someone who built the space she inhabits rather than inheriting it. She greeted people by name, remembered details, asked questions that were real questions rather than social decorations. She found him at the terminal at 6:30. It's working, she said, meaning the setup. It usually does, he said. She looked at him directly, the way she had at the brownstone, without the performance of the office, with the realness that he had come to understand was her actual self rather than a departure from it. Richard Hale spoke to you. It wasn't a question. Briefly, Daniel said. He speaks to everyone briefly, she said. The brevity is the strategy. Small deposits of doubt distributed widely. She said this without bitterness, with the analytical flatness of someone who has studied a problem and named it accurately. There's a vote at the end of the quarter on my continued leadership. He's been building toward it for 8 months. Are you going to lose it? She looked at him. I don't know, she said. That's the honest answer. 6 months ago, I would have said no definitively. Now she stopped. I've been somewhere else this year. Not professionally. I haven't missed a filing or a report or a single billable hour. But somewhere else in the way that people notice even when they can't name it. And Richard has been very good at helping them name it. Daniel said, the letter. She looked at him. You've been somewhere else because of the letter, he said. Because you've been trying to do something real, and real things take the kind of attention that boards of directors mistake for drift. She was quiet for a moment. That's a generous interpretation. It's accurate, he said. Those are usually the same thing. Something shifted in her expression, not softening exactly, but opening. The quality of a window that has been painted shut for years and is being carefully worked free. I sent it, she said, 2 weeks ago. The letter. He waited. She hasn't responded. A pause. But she didn't block the email, which is, she blocked the last 3. She said this with the precision of someone reporting data they are not yet allowing themselves to interpret emotionally. So that's something. That's something, he agreed. The vote was announced the following Wednesday in an email to the full board that Richard Hale sent at 7:43 in the morning, which Daniel knew because Catherine forwarded it to him with no message attached, just the email, and he understood the forwarding to mean. I'm telling you this because there are very few people I'm telling. He read it at breakfast, while Marisol ate toast and listed the properties of courts. The vote was framed as a routine leadership assessment, which was the vocabulary of people who want to do a thing and would prefer the thing not be identified by its real name. He called her at noon. What do you need from me? He said. A pause. Nothing, she said. You've already... Catherine. She stopped. What do you need? He said again. A longer pause. The quality of silence that happens when someone is working out whether they are allowed to need something. I have to give a statement to the board, she said finally. Before the vote. I have 30 minutes. And I don't know, he could hear it very faintly, the thing underneath the precision. I don't know how to make a case for myself that doesn't sound like the kind of case-making I've been trying to stop doing. I don't know how to be honest about this year without confirming everything Richard has been suggesting. Daniel was quiet for a moment. You told me once, he said, that when you tried to apologize to Nadia, it always came out sounding like a case you were making. Like you were trying to win. Yes. And I said, "Don't explain," she said quietly. "Just say what you actually lost." "Same thing," he said. "Same letter. Different room." He did not attend the board meeting. He was not invited, and it was not his place, and he understood both of these things clearly. He was a computer repair technician with a dinosaur on his business card and a daughter who believed quartz contained magic properties. He was not someone who attended board meetings. He dropped Marisol at school, drove to a client in the north part of the city, replaced a motherboard, recovered a corrupted spreadsheet, answered 3 questions about cloud backup with the patient thoroughness he brought to everything, and drove home. He was making dinner when his phone rang. "It was close," Catherine said. 7-5. "In your favor?" "In my favor." A pause. He heard her exhale a long, slow breath, the kind that carries a long time behind it. "I told them about Marcus. My husband. I told them what his death did to me and what I did instead of grieving it properly and what it cost the people around me. I told them about the year I've had and why." Another pause. "I did not explain. I just said what I lost." He was quiet. "Richard voted against me," she said. "Obviously. And 4 others." But something in her voice that he hadn't heard before. Not triumph. Something quieter and more lasting. "One of the board members who voted for me came and found me afterward. She said her own mother had been unreachable for years and had called her recently, out of nowhere. She said she was glad I was still there." Daniel stirred the pot on the stove. Outside the kitchen window, the November dark had come early, the way it does, and the light above the stove made the kitchen warm and close in his. "I heard for Nadia," Catherine said. Then, quickly, as if the speed would protect her from the size of it, she didn't call. She sent 2 sentences. She said she got the letter. She said she needed time, but she got it. He put down the spoon. "Catherine." "I know," she said. "I know." They stayed on the phone for a moment without speaking, which was, he had come to understand, a thing they did, occupied silence together in a way that did not require it to be filled. "Marisol has a school concert next week," he said. "She's playing the recorder. She would tell you it's the most important concert in the school's history. She has data to support this." A pause. Then something he had not heard from her before, a laugh. Real, unguarded, arriving before she could think about whether it was appropriate. "I would like to hear about the data," she said. "Come to the concert," he said. It was simple. It was not a declaration. It was just the next right thing, which in his experience was usually what declarations were made of. A long pause. "Is it appropriate?" she said. "For me to come?" "Marisol asked about you last week," he said. "She wanted to know if the lady with the good coffee was coming back. She has opinions about people, and her opinions are almost always right." Another pause. Shorter. "What time?" She came to the concert in a dark green coat, her hair down, carrying a small paper bag that turned out to contain a perfect, smooth piece of rose quartz, purchased at a geology shop on the way, because she had remembered, had filed it away and brought it back out, that Marisol collected rocks. Marisol opened the bag, looked at the quartz, looked at Catherine, and said, "This one is very good energy." "I was told to find the best one," Catherine said seriously. "You did," Marisol confirmed, and closed her hand around it. And that was that. The concert was in the school gymnasium, with folding chairs and a hand-painted banner, and the kind of acoustics that turned 32 recorders into something that required real love to sit through. Daniel sat in the second row. Catherine sat beside him. They did not touch. They did not need to. When Marisol walked out with her class and found them the rose, found her father's face, and then, beside it, the face she had decided to trust on the evidence of a piece of rose quartz and reliable energy. Her expression did something that Daniel would carry with him for the rest of his life. Not surprise, not performance, just a small, private smile, the kind children give when something they were quietly hoping for turns out to be true. Richard Hale resigned from the board in January, in a letter that cited a desire to pursue other opportunities, which was the vocabulary of people who have been asked to find other opportunities and would prefer the asking not be identified by its real name. Catherine called Daniel to tell him, not because it required telling, but because she was in the habit now of telling him things. In February, on a Tuesday evening, no occasion, no reason, just a Tuesday, Nadia Voss called her mother for the first time in 4 years. They spoke for 23 minutes. Catherine told Daniel afterward that it was the most frightening and the most important phone call of her life, and that it had begun with Nadia saying, "I read the letter 3 times. I wanted you to know that." They spoke again the following week, and the week after. It was slow. It was careful. It was the way that real things go. Not all at once, but in the direction of all at once, moving steadily towards something whole. It was Marisol who noticed first, the way children notice everything that adults are still finding their courage to name. It was a Saturday morning in March, the kitchen full of the smell of pancakes, the kind Marisol had taken to making herself, with varying degrees of accuracy, under the patient supervision of Catherine, who had turned out to be unexpectedly good at the ones that required precision and surprisingly bad at the ones that required instinct, which Marisol considered deeply funny and Daniel considered one of the better things he knew about her. Marisol looked at the two of them from across the kitchen, with the forensic attention of a 9-year-old who has run the data and arrived at a conclusion. "You know, you're basically a family," she said. "Right." Catherine looked at the pancake batter. Daniel looked at the ceiling. "We're working on it," he said. Marisol nodded, satisfied, and went back to the stove. "Okay," she said. "I just wanted to make sure you both knew. A person who is unseen is not invisible. The right eyes are always watching." Daniel Avila had spent 4 years fixing things that were broken and returning them to the people who needed them. He had built something quiet and good in the space his life had available, and he had done it without calculating what it might one day bring back to him, because that was not why he did it. He did it because it was the work, and the work was good, and Marisol was watching. He had walked into a stranger's office on a Tuesday morning and accidentally read 2 lines of a letter that a woman had not been able to finish, and he had closed the document because that was the right thing, and then he had said the one small true thing that turned out to be exactly what she needed, because that is how it works. The small true things delivered without agenda, without performance, without any expectation of return. They're never wasted. Somewhere in Portland, a woman named Nadia put her mother's number in her phone under a new contact name. Not Mom, not yet. Something small and provisional that was moving slowly and certainly in the direction of Mom. Somewhere in a school gymnasium, a banner still hand-painted from a recorder concert waited to be taken down. And in a kitchen that smelled like pancakes, a 9-year-old with rose quartz in her pocket and data to support her conclusions presided over a Saturday morning with the quiet, complete authority of a child who has understood something the adults in her life were still working up the courage to say out loud. She had already named it. She was just being polite by waiting for them to catch up. Thank you for sitting with this story all the way to the end. The people who stay for the whole story are the ones who understand it. If it moved you, the videos on your screen right now are waiting to do the same. And if you haven't subscribed yet, come home. Quiet Kind has a story for you.